Okay, Mel Kiper Jr. Now, it is, I guess, technically Mel Kiper Jr. season. Everybody wants to talk draft picks. Everybody wants to talk mock draft. Everybody wants to talk combine next week. The truth is, as far as I'm concerned with the NFL, it's free agency season. And then once free agency opens next month, and we see the big money guys go off the board right away, and then we see guys we thought were going to sign for big money, and then they end up not having much of a market, and then we see guys kind of trickle out, then it becomes draft season. But I hate to say it, people care about mock drafts, people care about Mel Kiper Jr., and teams like the Titans make decisions in free agency, I think, based off of the draft. So when it comes to Mel Kiper Jr. Mel Kiper Jr. on ESPN has a demand for the Titans when it comes to the 4th overall pick. Here's what Mel said on ESPN.
He's all over the place, particularly at edge rusher. Need somebody to get after the quarterback, and wide receiver. Somebody actually will catch the football when it's thrown to them and not end drives with drop passes, as has happened really over the last 2 years too much at Tennessee. But edge rusher, so critical. And David Bailey, you got to get a guy inside of your top 4 when you can pick him 4. You don't want to reach for the 6th, 7th best player. David Bailey at a Texas Tech, formerly of Stanford, where he was very good. This year, he was great. He had sacks in 11 of the 14 games, right? He had 8 forced fumbles over the last 2 years, 5 at Stanford 2 years ago, 3 this year at Texas Tech. I don't want to hear about pressures and hurries. I want sacks. I want guys who can finish and close it out, right? And David Bailey, Jordan, can do exactly that. Tennessee needs a guy like that. And Bailey, right now, and Arvell Reese vying to see who really is the best defensive player in this draft.
Okay. So Mel is saying needs all over the place, receiver, edge rusher, but you need to take David Bailey or, as he said, Arvell Reese, because as we saw, Daniel Jeremiah's mock draft at NFL Network has David Bailey going at number 2 to the Jets, which would put Arvell Reese in play to the Titans at 4. And so Mel saying, hey, difference makers on the edge. Jordan Reed, who was with Mel in that, suggested that the Titans use the 4th pick on Carnell Tate, the wide receiver out of Ohio State. And Mel fired back talking about the state of the receiver position in the draft. And again, what the Titans absolutely need to do.
And one thing is, wide receiver is arguably the deepest position in this draft. They will be able to find really good ones in the 2nd through 7th round, really. Brendan Thompson out of Mississippi State, where's he going to go? He may be one of the fastest players in this draft. I love Zachariah Branch. Some not as high on him as I am. Can't throw the ball down the field to Zachariah Branch when they're throwing everything short. So I think he can do more than just be a guy who's a bubble screen sensation. So for me, I think you can get wide receivers. That's going to be their debate. Will we wait a little bit and get a wide receiver or 2? But to get a guy like David Bailey or an Arvell Reese from Ohio State, you got to get those guys high because they are special entities coming off the edge.
Okay, I see the conundrum. Now, Mel is saying this draft is deep at receiver. You can get a receiver in the 2nd round. The Titans will be picking at the top of the 2nd round. Mel is saying these guys on the edge, Bailey and Reese, are special players. Mel would know better than I would. He's saying you've got to go edge rusher with the 4th pick. Now, here's where the conundrum lies. The Titans right now have a lot of money to spend. Everybody's making a big deal about that. The Titans told all the broadcasters at the end of the season that they were going to spend a boatload of money. Adam Schefter was talking about the money they were going to spend. Kevin Harlan during the Chiefs game was talking about all of the cap space that the Titans are going to spend this upcoming offseason. And so we know that the Titans have a lot of money. And we know that the Titans are going to spend a lot of that money. Or at least they've implied they're going to spend a lot of that money. I've already told you, if Amy lets you spend at the 25th amount in the league, which is where you've been on average over the last 4 years, that's still $160 million you get to add this offseason. And that's before cutting guys like Lloyd Cushenberry and L'Jarius Sneed, who I think you're definitely going to cut. So when it comes to the pass rusher debate versus the receiver debate, I have 2 thoughts. The first is this. It is easier, in my opinion, to get an impact pass rusher in the free agent market than it is wide receiver. Mike Evans is old, and he's coming off of an injury. Trey Hendrickson is coming off of an injury, but he was a dominant player last year before he had that injury. The best wide receiver on the board is George Pickens. He's probably going to get tagged. And Alec Pierce is the second best receiver, and he's really a number 2. And again, I think Alec Pierce is going to get tagged. So it's all old guys like Mike Evans or Deebo Samuel, or guys that are good, but Romeo Doubs, Rashid Shaheed, Wan'Dale Robinson, etc. When it comes to edge rusher, there are guys out there like Trey Hendrickson who are bad dudes. Odafe Owe is 27 years old. It is easier to convince yourself, you know what, you can get a pass rusher, a high-end pass rusher in free agency, so let's do that, and then let's draft the receiver. The thing with me is I don't believe in that. I don't believe in position discussions. Now, I do believe in premium position versus non-premium position. The value of a premium position player is bigger, to me, than the value of a non-premium position player. Jeremiah Love does not have the same value as David Bailey has, even though Jeremiah Love is just as good of a prospect because he plays running back. It's the same with guard. Think of the Atlanta Falcons. They have Chris Lindstrom, one of the best guards in the NFL. They have Bijan Robinson, one of the best running backs in the NFL. How good are the Falcons? So I always keep in mind that the position talk I don't like to have is we need a receiver, draft a receiver, because that gets you Corey Davis. I don't like that. But I also would say, hey, if we're talking 4th overall pick and you want me to draft the running back, this running back better be Barry Sanders. He better have Derrick Henry's impact if I'm going to use the 4th overall pick on Jeremiah Love. And this is why I believe I agree with Mel Kiper. And that is, again, without having the grades in front of me, and we haven't finished all of the draft board, but this is where I think I agree with Mel. If David Bailey and Arvell Reese project as impact pass rushers that will get after the quarterback and really be top of the league guys, not Myles Garrett, that's a generational player. But if these guys project as Micah Parsons type pass rushers or Aiden Hutchinson type pass rushers, I think you have to do it. Now, the debate, I think, is fair if Carnell Tate were to project to be Jamar Chase. But I don't think Carnell Tate does project to be Jamar Chase. So since Bailey and Reese project to be those quote-unquote special type talents when it comes to the 4th pick, what did Mel call them? Special entities? Well, I need a special entity with the 4th pick. When it comes to Carnell Tate, who, again, seems like a good receiver, he's not even the best receiver on his own team. That doesn't sound like a special entity. And again, that's what gets you Corey Davis. Corey Davis wasn't bad, but Corey Davis was not worthy of the 5th pick in an absolutely loaded draft. So when it comes to what Mel Kiper's saying, and I already see people in here saying like, I don't care what Mel Kiper has to say. Mel Kiper, what's he know? I agree with Mel. And again, a lot of people are going to say, you've got to get weapons for Cam Ward. I agree and I understand. But my priority in terms of building the football team around Cam Ward, because I think we all agree at this point, that's what they have to do. They have to build a football team around Cam, and they have to hope that Cam is as good as they think he is, because if Cam is not as good as they think he is, then they're all going to get fired anyways. But the way I build the team around the quarterback is I build it with a defense and a running game, and then we'll add the playmakers after that. But I'm going defense, running game, and I want the quarterback to win games. And I think the quarterback can win games if the scores are short and the game is short and we keep, hey, Cam, we just need 16 points in this game. We don't need 26. I think that's a big difference. So I am prioritizing, I'm with Mel Kiper. I am prioritizing those guys over, again, the idea of we have to get a receiver for Cam in the draft. Again, second round. Now, what I don't do is I'm not going to just say, well, you got A.J. Brown in the second round, so you can draft a receiver in the second round, and that'll be like getting A.J. Brown again. Because it's a lot more complicated than that. You know, one of my favorite things is, I was talking to somebody about this yesterday when it came to the Bengals. So the Bengals, 2 years in a row, tagged T. Higgins. And then they gave T. Higgins the big contract. And I think when they tagged T. Higgins, because the Bengals didn't, the Bengals aren't a team that we would expect to go out there and pay everybody. I think the Bengals tagged T. Higgins hoping somebody would offer a first or second round pick, and then they could draft another T. Higgins and not have to pay the big fat salary and the big fat signing bonus. Well, that didn't happen. And I think the reason that didn't happen is because teams like the Chiefs and teams like the Bills were like, no. We're not going to trade a high pick and then pay T. Higgins. We'd rather draft Xavier Worthy. We'd rather draft Keon Coleman. And on draft night, that sounds like it makes a lot of sense. After the draft is over, a couple of years down the road, you look at the New England Patriots and you say, you could have traded that pick for T. Higgins and instead drafted Jalen Polk. So keep that in mind. I think you can get a receiver at the second round pick. Mel would know better than I would, but I'm not just going to assume that second round receiver is going to be A.J. Brown. So I want everybody to be cautious in that regard. One person says, defense doesn't get you to the playoffs. In the playoffs, you need offense, defense, and special teams to win a championship. All right, but we're years away from the championship, guys. And I don't know how many years away, but I'd probably say 2. I just want a team that goes out there and wins 8 or 9 games and for this season and is competitive in a handful of other games so that 8 or 9 wins could really be 10 or 11 wins, especially if Cam pops. That's how I feel. But again, that's just me. So that's the first thing. Mel Kiper Jr. says they got to take Bailey or Reese, and I don't see too many people today say they need a receiver, which I am thankful for.